Aloha and welcome. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about list slicing. Now, when you hear slicing, it should remind you of what we did back with strings. And essentially, we're doing the same thing here. So this should be really just a review, but it'll be looking a little bit different because instead of strings, we're dealing with lists. But everything that you learned prior with strings is going to apply here with lists. So without further ado, let me go ahead and pull up our handy dandy little VS Code editor. And here we go. So we're going to look at some of the things that we can do. First of all, let's think back to strings. When we're doing things with strings, when we're doing our slicing, remember that after our list name, we're going to put in, well, first of all, let's make a list here. Let's make a list of cars. So I have that pre-prepared here. So we have cars, we have Prius, Tesla, Supra, Nova, and Corvette. So this is just a nice little list. When we're doing indexes, like we did in strings, if it's just one word, one long word, and you want to get the first character, remember these are zero based. So the first item that you see in here, the Prius, is the 0th element. It's element number 0 because we're zero based. And the last one here would be, let's see, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this would be the 4th element. But remember, when we're talking about, let's say, my cars here, we're going to say my cars equals cars. We're going to say from the 0th element. And also, if you remember, we can omit that altogether if we're going to start from the beginning. And we will here. Let's just say from the 0 to the 3rd one. That 3 there is not inclusive. So it's going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, but it's not going to get the 3rd element there. So let's go ahead and print my cars here and see what it gives us. So you'll see that it gives us Tesla or Prius, Tesla, Supra, which Prius, Tesla, Supra, it's giving us the 0th, 1th, and the 2th, but it doesn't give us the 3. It's not including the 3 there. So it's just going 0, 2, 3, but not including it. So we can omit the 0 altogether and get the same result here, because if you omit the 0, if you omit the start index, it accepts it as the beginning, so it'll start with 0. Also, if we were to omit the 3 there, that right there does two things actually. It gives us the entire list, but it also makes a copy of that list, just like it does in a string. So yep, sure enough, we get all elements of it. So that just makes a copy of it for us. And let's see, we also dealt with negative indexes. So when we're dealing with negative indexes, if we were to put like a -1 here, what that will do is it'll start at the beginning and it'll go until 1 before the end. So if we go ahead and print that, we should expect that it won't have Corvette. So when we do that, sure enough, it doesn't have Corvette. If we really want to blow our minds a little bit, we can say from -2 there. Sure, that's not mind-blowing, but what's mind-blowing is if we start like -3 here and then go to -2, we're going to go -1, -2, -3, and we're going to go up until -1, -2, but not including that. So it should be just Supra. And boom, that is exactly what we get there. So let's clear this out to make it a little bit clean. So, so we can do a lot of the things, or actually everything that we do with the strings, we can do the string slicing, we can do and do in the same way with our list slicing. One of the other things that we talked about in strings that also a string slicing that applies here is this concept of a stride. So a stride is essentially when you want to skip over certain elements. So let's say we wanted to take my cars and we want to go from the beginning to the end, but then we put in a 3rd element here, a 3rd, we're going to put in a 3rd argument here, and let's say 2 is the argument. So what it's going to do is it's going to start with the 1st element, it's going to take that one, and then the stride being 2, it's going to every other one take it. So we're going to get Prius, we're going to get Supra, and that should be, and Corvette. So we hit play here, and sure enough, we get Prius, then Supra, then Corvette. We're skipping every other one because the stride is 2. So we start at the beginning, then we skip over one, then we get one, then we skip, then we take. So that's what that stride is. So if we put in 3 here, what do you think we'll get? Well, let's go ahead and take a look. We know we'll start with Prius. So we'll get Prius, we'll skip Tesla, we'll skip Supra, then we'll get Nova. Then we'll skip Corvette, then that's the end, and we end. So we can use that thing called a stride. So a couple other notes about the numbers here. If you're not putting in something, if you're just using that, what we're ending up doing here is making a copy of this list. We're not just, so we're making a total copy of the list here. So another thing to keep in mind is if you put in an end position here that's a little bit beyond the end of the list, it will treat it as if you did it up into the end of the list. So it doesn't give you like an index error here. It'll just treat that as the end of the list. One other thing to keep in mind is if your end index is less than the start, in other words, if this starts us at 0 and when I say less than the start, I don't mean with a negative number. So let's say you start with 2 and then you put 1 here. It's going to gracefully give you an empty list as the result. So it's not going to crash or anything like that on you. So that's essentially list slicing. You've already seen all this. You've seen it in strings. This was really just in my opinion, a refresher because it's the same concept. It treats the indexes the same way. You've got a stride just like you did with slicing string. So that's that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. This is really an easy section, so I don't suspect anybody's going to have any questions. But if you do, reach out. I'm always happy to set up a meeting and talk to you, go through it in one-on-one Zoom session if you need. So take care, and I'll see you in the next lesson.